I ordered something from Saberforge, and that is the First Harvest soundboard. As you know, if you've been following my channel and looking at some of my playlists, I also do installs. This looks like it's going to be very easy to install. So that is the First Harvest soundboard. I'm looking forward to seeing how this works out. I'm not sure what saber or what hilt I'll install it in. I have several that I could do that with, but once I do, I'll get back to you with another video. Hey Saber fans, this is graypaladin. In a previous video, you saw me unbox the First Harvest soundboard from Sabertech, the new Saberforge veteran tier electronics. Well, in this video, I'm getting ready to install that First Harvest soundboard in this Saberforge Desert Warrior. I received this lightsaber in a mystery box, a sound mystery box back in 2020. It is currently housing the old Sabercore veteran tier electronics.
Saberforge Crimson.
It is a single green LED with no flash on clash. As you can see, it's not that great in my opinion. Me personally, I was never really a fan of the Sabercore soundboard or the old veteran tier mainly. So I'm very happy to gut this and put in something new. I'm going to be recycling some of the parts like the battery and the recharge port, but everything else will be new. I'll show you a kind of close-up of all the parts I'm going to use and whatnot. But for now, let's jump over here. I've got my diagram up, my wiring diagram. Let's take a closer look and see how we're going to wire this, okay? All right, so as you see, we have the Sabertech German Engineering Power. This is a company that is based out of Germany, as you can see. And Germany is well known for their quality of engineering. So here's the quick setup guide that I found. And this is available on Saberforge's website. Unfortunately, I do not think I found this on the Sabertech website, but that was some time ago when I checked. But anyway, I'm going to go for a RGB setup on this lightsaber. So I'm going to be following the RGB LED here. And as you can see, that the First Harvest soundboard is capable of doing RGB, single color, with a separate flash on clash color, and single color, no separate flash on clash. We're going for the RGB right here. Scrolling down, here is the soundboard itself. Very large pads to solder and pretty cut and dry. We have one button switch here, or one button pad, negative and positive for the battery, and then positive and negative for the speaker. Then we have positive negative for data. This is used not for NeoPixel because this board does not support NeoPixel, but this is used primarily for if you want to use the USB recharge port. If not, then you would just use the standard positive negative and battery spots for a standard 2.1 millimeter recharge port. And then here, LED 1, 2, and 3, this is going to be for your LEDs. The top will be, or the first will be red, the second will be green, and the bottom will be blue, R, G, and B. As you can see, scrolling down here, it tells you the functions of each of the pads along with some notes and things. Same thing here. Now you do get the two options of recharge port. You can do a 2.1 millimeter recharge port when you can utilize a kill key. That's what we're going to be using for this particular install. But you can also use what they call the seedling module, which is a micro USB. It's not for data because the First Harvest soundboard is not customizable in that way, but you can use it for recharge. And then there's the wiring diagram there. We will be going with an RGB setup here. So as you can see, we've got the battery, and that will go to the two pads that we saw at the previous diagram or picture. And then there's the switch. This does not support a 2-button activation, only a single. So we have that there. And then our two speaker wires will go on the bottom pads on the left. On the right, if we're utilizing the seedling, which we are not, so we're not using these two pads here on the bottom right, and then the top three on the right will be for the Tri-Cree LED that we're using, red, green, and blue. And you can see that right here, the red leading to the top pad, the green leading to the second pad, and then the blue leading to the third pad. If we're going to use accent LEDs, we can do that here. I don't believe that we are going to use accent LEDs, but that option is available, and we'll of course need to include resistors on all three of our pads. This is not like the Versal board where you can just use one resistor on the red LED. We do have to apply resistors on all three, red, green, and blue. For the rest of this manual, it shows the setup, the wiring diagrams for the other options, which we're not using. We're doing Tri-Cree. And this says how we can configure or tell the board what type of setup we're using, and we are going with the RGB, and it does tell you that it will default to a single blade color without separate flash on clash. So we'll need to, what it says here, to change the LED type, just hold the button for 10 seconds to reset the board. After that, it will enter the LED type menu. You can change the LED type by tapping the button. To confirm your selection, hold the button. So we will be doing that once we fire this up initially. And then these are just the functions of how to use the board with the single button configuration. And that's pretty much it. Really short manual. It's not like CFX where it's 400 pages. This one is just a simple 5 pages, and we're only using probably 3 or 4 of the 5 pages because we're not using all the other different setups. We're using the RGB, which is right here. Okay, so now that we have seen how we're going to wire up this soundboard, let's slide on over to this my back workstation table, and we'll get a look at all of our parts and really get moving on gutting this and seeing how it goes from there. So I'm getting ready to install this saberforge hilt with their new Veteran Tier Electronics, the First Harvest soundboard from Sabertech. Now, the board is right here. I'm going to start from left to right. Here's the soundboard, and this board is very user-friendly, it appears. We've got nice large pads on both sides, accent LED pad here, and that's the top side. The bottom side has 3 additional pads that I'm most likely not going to be using. So pretty cut and dry. Then I've got my RGB LED here. The red is here on the bottom, the green is on the right, and the blue is on the left. And you can always tell by looking at the red that's there. And typically it goes in order, either clockwise or counterclockwise. So I've got my little battery pack here just to test. Positive on the top, negative on the bottom. And I just do a little tap on the pads here, and then we can see there's our blue, which means our green is going to be on the opposite side. So we've got red, green, and then blue. Got the copper heatsink. This is the adhesive pad that keeps the LED attached to the heatsink. Here is the lens and the housing that screws onto the copper heatsink. I've got a switch. I'm going to be reusing some parts, so I'm going to replace this illuminated silver switch with this black non-illuminated switch, and I'm going to reuse the black recharge port that's there. So I'll have black switch and black recharge port, get those two to match. I haven't cracked this open yet, so I'm not sure what's on the inside, but I'm going to try to reuse that recharge port, reuse the battery that's in there, and whatever chassis, if one, is provided in there. But just in case, I do have a keystone here that I can do a removable battery with, and I also have a Goth 3D all-in-one Saber chassis that I could use. The board doesn't have a snug fit there, but I can easily, either with hot glue or some type of Velcro or hook and latch tape to keep that secured in there. This holds a kill switch, which I will not be using for this saber. And then I did add the positive and negative terminals for the removable battery that this will hold, and then it takes a 28mm speaker there. I'm using from the Saber Armory, the KR Saber's 8 ohm 2 watt bass speaker, because the saberforge speakers aren't that great in my opinion. I've got a series of resistors over here ready to go to attach to all the LEDs as well. So those are all of my parts. I'll include links to all of these in the description down below. Alright, so the first thing we'll have to do is take apart and take out the old electronics in this hilt. It's fully functioning and working properly, so I'm going to make sure I keep my kill key in so I don't get any false starts and things like that. So I'll just first begin by taking out the blade plug, which is quite nice. Next I'll do is remove the pommel. After that, I'm going to take off the cover tack wheel, and I see there's screws on this switch section, so I think I'll remove those as well. This is a one-piece design, so there's nothing else to really take apart, so it might be a challenge feeding stuff through here. Okay, now that those are removed, I'm not seeing this control box. I'm not feeling it shift or move. Oh, wait. There it goes. It's lifting up a bit now. So, with that rising up, of course, there's lots of glue attached there. Yep, there it goes. Now it's coming out. So I can take that. I could remove it directly from here, but I think I might want to keep those wires, at least for now. Maybe I can slide the board out or the chassis and separate it directly from the board and then just pull this out as one piece. So let me just do that, try to take this apart, and I'll get back to you. So I was able to get this out, but I had to cut these wires from the recharge port and to the switch, which is really unfortunate, because if I was able to, I mean, I could honestly, actually, I could still do this. I could actually make this a plug and play kit and actually wire these back and make it a quick connectors, and basically just do this as like, I'll sell this as a plug and play kit. But I'm not going to do that because I want to reuse the battery that's in here, and I could even potentially use this chassis too. Instead of using this one here, I could save this for another build and just reuse the one that it came with. So let's go ahead and chip away at this shrink wrap and see what the chassis and board and battery look like on the inside. Alright, so there's the old veteran board, and honestly this is pretty well done, and I like that it had the shrink wrapping on there to really kind of protect all this stuff on the inside. So definitely no complaints there. And actually I could keep these same wires on the battery just like that and reuse that too, and then just insert the first harvest board right on top there. Basically just connect the new LED, swap out the speaker because I don't want to keep this. So hopefully this should go fairly painlessly. Let's hope. Fingers crossed, knock on wood. So what I'm going to do now is take this old board off and take this old battery out, wire up the new board, LED and switch, and do a test and see how that works. So I'm going to set this aside for now and begin the pre-tin of the new board. So I got everything taken out of the old chassis, and I just wanted to show you this before I begin soldering up the new board. The speaker, the old speaker, was secured in place by a lot of this, it seems like, hot, like almost like a hot glue gun, but it's rubber. Which honestly, it's very secure and held everything solidly in place to a point where I had to actually destroy the speaker to remove it, because this was just all in there, coated in the bottom, kind of like that, and the speaker was pressed into that. So the speaker was very secure in there. It wasn't going to budge, but I did get that out. As well as the battery. It's already wired for me, which is great. It's a 3400 milliamp 18650 battery, so that just slides right back in here. I'm going to coat that bottom so I don't get any shorts, but slides right back in there. Wire that up, positive, negative. Put my board on top, my new speaker here in the bottom, and keep going from there. So this is turning out to be a very low stress and pretty simple install here. So let's now begin pre-tinning our pads. So like I said earlier in the video, I'm going to need just about all of these pads except for 3. So I'm going to need to pre-tin this top one. That's going to be the switch. These next 2 pads here, that's the battery. These 2 bottom pads on the left, that's the speaker. And these first 3 on the top right, that's the LEDs, the red, the green, and the blue. I'm doing a standard recharge port, not the data, so I'm not going to need these 2 data pads here. And this is an accent pad, which I'm also not going to need, so I'm not going to do that either. So just the full left side and the top 3 on the right side. Got my solder. Soldering iron is warmed up and ready to go. And here we go. All right, so now that all of those pads are done, I'm going to go and pre-tin all of my components. Before I proceed, I wanted to just double check to make sure that the components were going to fit that control box, which of course they do. I end up swapping. I'm not going to reuse the other recharge port. I'm just going to put a new one in there. I mean, why not? Might as well just make everything fresh and new. So I've got the switch and I've got the recharge port. Both fit in there okay. Now I can pre-tin both of those components. Starting with the switch. Pre-tin both of the leads on the bottom there. I like to have just a little bit of bump on both sides of the prongs. That way I get a good solder and wire attachment there. Okay, let's move on to the recharge port. Let's take a look at that. And that looks pretty solid. That will work. Okay, recharge port is pre-tin. Now, as far as the speaker goes, those pads are pretty much already pre-tin coming out of the package. Notice this positive side, which doesn't really matter in our case, has already got some solder there, and then the negative side as well. So this is already set and ready to go. Because I had to pull off all that extra rubber stuff, I'm going to apply some hot glue to protect the negative side of the battery. So when I push that in to the chassis and bump it up against the speaker, that solder joint doesn't make contact with the metal on the back side of the speaker and cause a short or anything like that. So I'm going to seal up the back side of that battery. Now I'm going to wire the speakers, and it's very important to make sure that you don't leave too much contact on the pad, or else you're going to get it too hot and melt the plastic that's on the speaker, and then the pad will come loose. So you can't leave it attached for too long. And that's a good seal right there. Good. Switching sides. And now time to wire the switch. All right, let's take a look at that. So this prong here is really good. This one here, not as clean. So I'm gonna try to tidy that one up. Okay, that's a bit better. And I'm gonna put some shrink wrap over that, and that should hopefully seal it up okay. I pre-tinned the LED pads off of the camera, but those are done. So what I'll need to do is put all the wires on, feed them through, affix that to the copper heatsink, attach the lens, and then screw on the module. I almost forgot how frustrating it is to wire up an LED. So the solder just wasn't sticking to the pads, and what I ended up having to do was increase the temperature from my usual 350 Celsius up to 380, but usually 70 to 80 should be enough. That way it gets warm enough to really spread the solder and make good adhesive contact to the pad. So I did the red, the green, and the blue negative lines. I just need to solder the positive lines for the power, and then I can feed that through down the copper module, the copper heat sink. For the sake of time, also off camera, I soldered the wires to the recharge port. I did 2 on the positive so I can lead that to the battery and the board, and then I have the 2 negatives, 1 to the board and 1 to the battery. Okay, so I've said this about a dozen times before, and that is that NeoPixel is so much easier to install than Tri-Cree LEDs, in my opinion. But I just do not like soldering the pads because it's just hard to get a good adhesion of the solder to stick. And the solder just keeps breaking off, and that happened multiple times. So I had to do all this off the camera just because it was just too many stop and goes and restarts and things like that. But I have it complete finally with the resistors attached for the red, green, and blue. And then I've got the red, green, and blue negative lines running here too. So the LED module is complete. I just have to do one single power line coming off of that. Switch complete. I wired up the recharge port, and the speaker I fed through the chassis, which I know where that's going to connect, and the board's in place. So everything is just about ready to connect to the board and do our trial runs. For the sake of time in this video, I just went ahead and just soldered everything directly to the board and just jumped straight to the test. So as you can see here, I've got the switch wired, and then I've got the recharge port here, and everything is leading over this way too to the battery and to the LED, which is inserted in the hilt for now just so we can see the blade. And then I've got the LEDs soldered right there, and then the speaker is soldered on the back right here. Board's still clamped there, and the chassis and battery is sitting down here on the table. So let's fire this up and make sure everything is good to go. Full disclosure, I did test this earlier.
Dark side relic.
Here's our 1-button switch. The smooth swing works. Clash. And blaster. color change.
Choose color profile.
So everything seems to be in working order. Now I did, at default, the board is set to one single color, no flash on clash. So I had to hold the switch while it was powered off for about 15 seconds, and then it went into a configuration menu, and there I was able to choose RGB, and then now I can change all my colors and get the flash on clash. So as far as initial test goes, everything seems to be working just fine. So from this point now, I just need to cut all the wires to fit and then insert everything into the hilt. So what I've done thus far is cut all of the wires to length and place them on the chassis side of the speaker. Got that on there. Ended up using some hook and latch tape to secure the board down onto the chassis, and that's on the inside of the hilt here, as you can see there. It's pushed up quite far so I can have some extra length on these wires here. I don't think I would have room for quick connectors in there, so I ended up getting the wires and feeding them through the hole, and then I'll solder them on and then connect, and then slide everything back down and then let the chassis come down closer to the pommel. But that should do it. Hopefully I won't need to get in here. This is not a customizable board, so there's no sound card, any of that stuff. No plug into a computer, none of that. So having it just, solid like this should be fine. And what I'll need to do is put the bezel or pseudo control box on first, feed these wires through that, and then I can solder the wires to the components, and this should be good to go. Mission success. Everything has been placed inside the hilt. I did wire the recharge port with the wires up through the hole. Same thing with the switch. Did a quick test, make sure everything worked out okay. It did, so then I secured both the switch and the port down, and then reattached the CoverTech wheel. Let's take a quick look at what I had to do with the bottom of the chassis. And Saberforge had this same problem when I originally got this saber. There was the speaker sliding right against the top of the pommel, and you could hear the speaker vibrating against that metal. Same thing with mine. So what I ended up doing is just put just a little glob of hot wax right here, and that prevents the chassis from sliding down too close to the top of the pommel. Plus it gives me a bit more resonance. I could have pushed it further up in there, but I didn't feel it necessary. I think it'd be fine as it is. But yeah, that little glob of hot glue there helps keep that that speaker away from the pommel, so we don't hear that vibration against the speaker. So that worked out well too. I shouldn't need to open this up or anything. It is one piece design. Only the pommel comes off. But since the board isn't customizable, it should be no problem. But if I have to, I could just unscrew this box, lift these out, detach the wires, and then slide everything out. But I did keep the LED hardwired to the board, so that can just slide right out. So the only thing that needs to be detached is the speaker and the switch, and the port and the switch, and everything else can slide out. But as you can see,
Heirloom.
everything fires up great. And then there's the original blade plug that it came with. So let's take this now that this is finished. Let's wrap this up and slide back over to the main table. All right, so this saber is fully installed and complete. The saber has been taken care of, Master. it is finished then. You have brought peace and justice to the galaxy.
The Separatists have been taking care of my master.
It is finished then. You have restored peace and justice to the galaxy.
So, I just wanted to take a little time here to do just a quick review and functionality of the soundboard. I'm going to remove the blade plug and put in a demo blade. It's supposed to have 10 sound fonts, and that's cycling through all of the saberforge light side, gray side, and dark side fonts. They are not in order by side, so you can have a light side font to a dark side to a gray side. They're not all going to be in order of light side, gray side, and dark side.
The master.
I'm going to remove the pommel here so I'm not getting all the tassels and teeth clanging around. So, to power on the saber, just one tap of the button. To color change, because this is not an appropriate color, to change the color, press and hold for 2 seconds, release, and then press again.
Choose color profile.
And then to cycle through your colors, which are 16, just do a single tap of the switch. When you found a color that you like, just press and hold to lock that in. The saber has smooth swing. To my disappointment, this does not have regular accent swings. It's just smooth. So if I swing the saber faster or more aggressively, there's no change in the swing. So I think that's the only setback or drawback to this soundboard. Other than that, everything else is pretty solid. For blaster deflection, one single tap. There's flash on clash, obviously, if you have the RGB, so just clash the saber. For lockup, press and hold for about 2 seconds, release, then clash the saber. 1, 2, there we go. So it's a long press of 2 solid seconds. To disengage, just tap the button again. For your force effect, hold the button and twist. And it registers very easily. You don't have to do much to make that work. And that's all of your effects there. To power down, just press and hold until you hear the saber shut off. For volume change, press and hold the switch and activate a stab. But make sure you really get a good thrust in there.
Volume control activated.
So all you have to do to adjust your volume is twist the saber. Twist it down until it's muted or as low as you want, and then twist it back to your volume. You can do a full 360, it's just going to keep recycling through that. Down to nothing and then back up. When you found the volume you want, just one tap.
Volume adjusted.
And there you go. To cycle through the fonts, when it's off, just press and hold for 2 seconds and release.
Cyber Assassin.
Whatever color you select per font, it will save that color for each font selection. I just started the installation on this yesterday, and then I finished it up on the second day. Hence why I'm dressed differently from the beginning of the video. So I haven't had a lot of time to really fiddle with the board too much. So a lot of my colors might just kind of be the same default color that it starts with, which I think is blue.
Fulcrum.
son.
It's a Luke Skywalker inspired font.
Dark side relic.
Frozen winds.
I'll be honest, I do miss the accent swings.
Heirloom.
This is one of my favorites. Very stereotypical Jedi sound.
Ominous. Ranger's blade.
Actually, that's the Luke Skywalker sounding font. Well, both of them do kind of sound similar. This is more like the unstable sound.
The master.
And we're back to where I started. I do believe there are other blade effects like flicker and pulse and things like that. I just haven't gotten to that portion of my review. But overall, my initial impressions of this soundboard, very positive. The only drawback is that you just don't have the accent swings, and I do miss that when I'm swinging around. But overall, I think it's a good value for what you're getting. Smooth swing, blaster deflection, lockup, flash on clash, supports RGB or single color. You do get force effects, volume control, 10 sound fonts, which I think all the fonts are good. I like all of them that come out of Saberforge. So this is a really good option, and I enjoy this board very much. I didn't get into as much depth on the install of this as I would have liked, but if you go to my channel, graypaladin, you're kind of already there. Click on playlists, and I have a CFX installation series if you haven't caught that already, and I start from the ground up installing Crystal Focus 10 soundboard into a lightsaber. Also, the Versal soundboard that came out of it's KR Saber's soundboard. It's another great entry-level board. I also do a full installation of that as well. And then I have another playlist that's installs and tutorials by graypaladin. And theirs is everything that I've worked on or customized or did with a saber is in that playlist. If you want specific, just the CFX stuff, go to that playlist. Same thing for the Verso. But I get more in depth of how to wire components, and I have more tips on how to install a lightsaber with more close-ups and more detailed things than what I did with this first Harvest board. And also in that playlist, you can also find things like how I configure my CFX board on my Saberforge Vanquish saber, installing fonts, things like that. So please check that out if you want more information or more detail on installing a lightsaber. But overall, this is a great soundboard for the price. It's out the door, just $40 for the board itself, and I believe if you have it installed through Saberforge, it's $184 for that veteran tier. Huge upgrade from what they had before. It's much better than Sabercore or the old veteran tier that they had. 10 fonts, smooth swing, lots of effects, multicolor. Really great board. So I hope that this very brief review of the First Harvest soundboard was helpful to you. Please show your appreciation by giving me a like and sharing the video. I would really like that and appreciate that and your support very much. And this saber, I'm not holding on to this. I'll actually be selling the saber as well. So if you're interested, I'll be selling this for about $300, $325-ish. With shipping included. So hit me up at graypaladin.sabers@gmail.com, or you can message me on Facebook. And then if you see sold down in the description, then you know that the saber is no longer here and someone else already has their hands on it. But this is a great saber, and I think the First Harvest definitely gets my stamp of approval. If there's any type of update in the future, I hope they add the accent slings to the board. Other than that, thumbs up to the First Harvest soundboard. Really great. Thank you much for your time. Thank you very much for watching, and may the Force be with you.